Greetings, everyone. Welcome, dear Dhamma listeners, and a warm welcome to our esteemed teacher, Most Venerable Bulwana Ratnasiri Thero. It is time for us to start our Abhidhamma class in the second cycle. This is the 9th class, and I believe we have a couple of... Greetings, everyone. Welcome, dear... So I welcome Ratnasiri Thero to start the 9th Abhidhamma class with us. Over to you, Reverend Sir. Please unmute your microphone and you can start the video. I think you can start the video now, Reverend Sir.
Good afternoon. Let's start our Abhidhamma class today. We were discussing about Cetasika, mental factors. We discussed about unwholesome activities and the universals, and we have discussed all those things. Today we are going to discuss about the wholesome mental factors. Wholesome mental factors. Sobana Cetasika. Sobana Cetasika, beautiful mental factors. Sobana Cetasika, they have been analyzed into 25 mental factors. And it has been synthesized or classified in 4 groups for you to understand, to make it easy to understand. Beautiful universals. Sobana Sadhana, beautiful universal. And abstances and illimitable and non-delusions. Universal Sobana Sadharana. They are called beautiful universals. Sobana Sadharana. They are 19 in number. Abstinence, virati. They are 3 in number. Illimitable, 2 in number. Appamanya. And there is 1 wisdom, panya, panyindriya, non-delusions. There is 1. So altogether, the beautiful mental factors are 25 in number. Before to describe these wholesome mental factors, we have to think of what is kusala, what is akusala, and what are the wholesome mental factors and unwholesome mental factors. In that way, we have to understand kusala and akusala. In the very beginning of our Abhidhamma class, we studied about kusala and akusala. So kusala and akusala, wholesome and unwholesome, and also functional, avyakuta, play a major role in Abhidhamma. You know, origin of Abhidhamma took place in Tautisa heaven. When Buddha went to the Tautisa heaven to preach Dhamma, Abhidhamma, to his mother god. His mother was born as a god in the heaven. Buddha went there to preach Abhidhamma to his mother god, to his former mother, Mahamaya. There, the Attasalini says, Tatrako Bhagava Devanam Tavatinsi Abhidhamma Katang Katesi Kusala Dhamma, Akusala Dhamma, Avyakata Dhamma. So that indicate Abhidhamma is Kusala Dhamma, wholesome. Akusala Dhamma, unwholesome. Avyakata Dhamma, functional. So we must understand what is wholesome, what is unwholesome, and what is functional. You know, when you study unwholesome consciousness, there are 12 unwholesome consciousness rooted in greed, rooted in delusion, rooted in anger. In that way, there are 12 unwholesome consciousness. They are unwholesome, akusala. When the person is going to commit unwholesome activity, there arise unwholesome consciousness, chitta. But this unwholesome consciousness does not arise lonely. There the unwholesome factors, mental factors is there. Somanassa sahagata, ditthigata, sampayutta, asankarika. So there is the mental factor. Somanassa, there is priti. The mental factor, joy is there, priti. Ditti is there, views, wrong views. Ditti is there. And Somanassa means joy. So this we can understand. And asankarika, sasankarika, they are also the result of mental factors. So the consciousness does not arise lonely. Consciousness arises, wholesome or unwholesome, arise with mental factors. So unwholesome consciousness arises with unwholesome mental factors. Wholesome consciousness also arise with wholesome mental factors. So these 25 beautiful mental factors, they arise in the 24 wholesome consciousness. With the 24 wholesome consciousness, these 25 beautiful mental factors arise at the same time. When the consciousness arises, at the same time, the mental factors also arise in the consciousness, because those mental factors have separated tasks to do in the consciousness. So Buddha explained, at the same time, consciousness as well as the mental factors arise at the same time all together. So when we discussing about 25 beautiful mental factors, we have to consider about the 24 wholesome consciousness. And we have to consider about the 10-fold of meritorious activities, Dasa Punya Kriya. When the person engaged in 10-fold of meritorious activities, there arise those wholesome consciousness with the beautiful mental factors. To study about the beautiful mental factors, we have to elicit our mind in those 24 wholesome consciousness. Can you remember the wholesome consciousness? Wholesome consciousness have been analyzed according to the engagement of the mental factors, have been analyzed into 25. And it has been synthesized again in 3 groups: Kusala, vipaka, kriya. Kusala, wholesome, vipaka resultant, kriya functionals. Kusala 8 in number, and also resultant 8 in number, functional also 8 in number. The same mental factors are there. In wholesome, in resultant, in functionals, the same mental factors they are with the consciousness. Now, can you remember the wholesome consciousness? Wholesome consciousness, 8 wholesome consciousness. They are rooted in non-greed, rooted in non-delusions, rooted in non-aversion or anger, non-greed, non-greed, non-anger, and non-delusions. Can you understand this non-root? Non-greed, non-delusion, non-anger. What is there in the sense that non-delusion or non-greed, non-anger? Non-anger is not merely absence of greed. If you think of the root, non-greed, it does not mean without greed. It acts as a power to suppress greed. That is non-greed. Now, in wholesome consciousness, along with the beautiful mental factors, non-greed is there. It is not the lack of greed. It means it's a power of suppressed greed. It's a sort of power there. Non-greed acts as a power there to suppress greed. Or when the miser want to donate something, so he have to suppress his greed. So there, the non-root, non-greed appear there as a power to suppress greed. So these non-greed, non-anger, non-delusions, they are known as the roots of the wholesome consciousness. Now, can you remember? You must remember now. Wholesome consciousness, 8 wholesome consciousness. Can you remember? What is the first one? Somanassa sahagata, ditthigata, somanassa sahagata, jnana sampayutta, asankarika. One consciousness, accompanied with joy, associated with knowledge, and unprompted. That is the first wholesome consciousness. Somanassa sahagata, jnana sampayutta, asankarika. There is, in this consciousness, there are engaged mental factors. Some of the beautiful mental factors is there. Somanassa sahagata, jnana sampayutta, asankarika. So this consciousness has been named according to the engagement of the consciousness. When this in Dhammasangani, we find descriptions how this consciousness arises. To arise a wholesome consciousness, there must be a wholesome object. There must be wholesome object to arise, wholesome consciousness, and wholesome mental practice. Now, I told you to arise wholesome consciousness, there must be wholesome object. That means people have object by associating the 10 fold of wholesome activities. Dana, Sila, Bhavana, Pattipathanu, Modana, Viya, Vatya, Pathayantu, Desana, Sutidittu. 10 meritorious deeds. Dana, charity, act of giving, gifting, donations. Sila, morality, observing moral precepts. So bhavana means mental culture or meditation to gain tranquil their wisdom. In that way, there are 10 meritorious deeds. So by selecting one of these meritorious deeds, the person who wants to do some meritorious deeds, he select one of the object derived from this meritorious deeds, 10 meritorious deeds. Associating these 10 meritorious deeds, he select the object. Buddha said, Sannimittani bhikkhave punya kamma. To do a meritorious activity, there must be object. Select the object. The people select so many objects to gather merits, to engage in the activity, to engage in the meritorious activities. They select some object or aim. After selecting aim or object, he engage in the meritorious activities, and there arise wholesome consciousness with wholesome mental factors in his mind. Suppose the person is doing Sangika Dan donations. That is the object. That is the object of that wholesome activity. To arise wholesome consciousness as a result, or as a karma, as kusala karma, there must be arise consciousness. So, to arise consciousness, there must be contact, phassa. Phassa is a mental factor. You know, when you study universal factors, sabbhacitta sadharana, 7 in number, phassa vedana sanya chetana ekaggata, jivitindriya manasikara. Phassa is contact. Contact is the mental factor. So, there is object, there is aim or object, and phassa is a mental factor that starts the wholesome consciousness, that starts the origin of the wholesome consciousness. So suppose now you engage in a Sangika Dana, there you have to perform a lot of activities. There is aim or object, and you contact. There you always contact with the object, the wholesome objects there. There is Mahasanga, the vision of Mahasanga. You contact, and there arise the consciousness, wholesome consciousness there. So, to arise the wholesome consciousness or the wholesome mental factors, there must be phassa, the contact with the object. Where it happens, can you? I told you in my previous lessons how it happened. There is a description in Attasalini, Chakkuncha paticca rupi uppacchati chakku viññānam tinnam sangati passu. In Attasalini, Buddha has explained what is contact. Buddha has defined there what is contact. That is the starting point of karma. Kusala karma, akusala karma. Phassa, contact. Buddha given a definition there. What is phassa? Here, chakkuncha rupi uppacchati chakku viññānam. Chakkuncha paticca rupi uppacchati chakku viññānam. There is eye. In eye, there is a sensitive place. It is called the door of eye. Now, object is there and sensitive place, the door of eye is there and the consciousness is there. So if there is object outside, there arise on the doors of the eye consciousness. And object is there, then Tinnang Sangati Passo. Of the combination of these three, object, door of the eye, and then the eye consciousness. Eye consciousness is the mind there. Eye consciousness and door of the eye and the object, these three combined together, it is called passa. It happens on the doors of the eye. Then we'll take ear also same. Sound is there. Door of the ear is there. And ear consciousness arises there. Then a combination of these three is called passa, the contact. Then after contact, there arise Vedana, Sanya, Chetana. In that way, there may be so many mental factors arise. If it is kusala karma, there arise wholesome mental factors in the mind, in the consciousness. In Dhamma Sangani, the details of those 25 mental factors, not only 25 mental factors, the whole mental factors have been given there, which arise with the consciousness. Now we'll try to study the 25 beautiful factors to engage in the wholesome consciousness. Now, when people engage in meritorious deeds, here arise those mental factors and wholesome consciousness. In the wholesome consciousness, that there arise those wholesome mental factors. We'll take the universal Sobhana Sadhara. They are in 90. First one is Saddha, faith. Saddha. What is Saddha? It is the confidence in 24 qualities of the Buddha, Dhamma and Sangha, and the faith in him towards them. Now he has confidence in the triple genes towards Nibbana. To achieve Nibbana, he has faith or confidence, 24 qualities. That is, Buddha has 9 special qualities. His Dhamma, his doctrine has 6 qualities, and his disciples, Sangha, has again 9 qualities. That is Saddha. Saddha, this mental factor, is maybe the gateway to engage in meritorious deeds. People, they engage in various kinds of meritorious deeds because of this Saddha or faith. Without faith, they don't take interest in doing meritorious deeds. Now think of when person engage in meditations, when person engage in observing precepts, if there is no saddha or faith in his mind, he does not take interest to engage in those meritorious activities. So saddha, faith, Buddha explained it as a gateway towards the meritorious deeds, and it has been described as the spiritual wealth, the noble wealth, the dana, wealth, saddha danam, sila danam, hiriyottapyan danam, sutta danam chachagote, panyami sattamam danam. So Buddha has pointed out 7 factors that tend the person to create spiritual values. So saddha is the first. Saddha dana, that is a wealth. Wealth for wealth to be invested to grow merit or the spiritual values in the person. So it is saddha is kind of wealth. Then in Kasibharadvaja Sutta, Buddha, there was a conversation between Kasibharadvaja and Buddha. Kasibharadvaja, at that moment, he was plowing his paddy fields with using plows and cows and so many means. He was plowing the paddy field. Buddha went there. Then what did Kasibharadvaja say? He said, we are plowing and we sow paddy and we get harvest and we get rice and we eat. In that way, you also plow the paddy field and sow seeds, paddy, and get harvest and eat. Don't come here. What did the Buddha said? Buddha said, I also plow paddy fields. I also sow seeds, paddy, and I also get harvest and I eat them. Buddha explained. Then again, the Bharadvaja asked, if you plow, if there is no buffaloes or no plows, how can you see? The Buddha said, Saddha Bijam Tapo Utti, Panyami Yuganangara. Saddha, that is faith, Saddha Bijam. Saddha is the seed, Buddha says. Tapoutti, my discipline is the rain. Panyami Yuganangalang, my wisdom is the plow. So plowing paddy field and sowing seeds, I reap, harvest, and I eat like too. So the Buddha explained it in metaphorical way, his Dhamma, his way of living. So here the Saddha is very important. Saddha Bidam. Saddha is the seed to bear fruits. So that is, Saddha is there. If Saddha is there in the person's mind, he tend to do threefold of meritorious activities: Dana, Sila, Bhavana. Bhavana, meditations. To engage in meditation, there must be Saddha in his mind, this mental factor, the Saddha. Then the next one, mindfulness, Sati. Mindfulness, Sati. It is very important to have concentrations before to develop concentrations. Person must develop his sati or mindfulness. To develop mindfulness, he has to avoid unwholesome objects. He has to avoid unwholesome thoughts. In Satipatthana Sutta, Buddha has explained how to develop mindfulness. There are 4 ways to be developed mindfulness: Kaya-anupassana, Vedana-anupassana, Chitta-anupassana, Dhamma-anupassana. So paying attention to your body conditions, nature of your body, you develop your mindfulness. Engage in meditation, you developed your mindfulness. Kaya-anupassana. You think of the real nature of your body. It is to be decayed. It is not permanent. It is to be disgusted. In that way, you develop your mindfulness. Chitta-anupassana, Vedana-anupassana, the feeling. You concentrate your mind, or you develop your mind according to the feeling of that you sense. You focus your attention on the feeling that you sense. Then you develop your mindfulness. Then chitta, that is consciousness. Various kinds of consciousness, saraga, vitaraga, vitadosa. In that way, there are kind of consciousness arise in the mind. Then you focus your attention on those mind or consciousness. Then you develop your mindfulness. Then Dhamma-anupassana is again the mental factors there. You developed your mindfulness, associating those factors, mental factors. That is sati. It is very important, mindfulness. Then shame. Shame or hiri is another mental factor. Shame in doing evil. If you feel shame in doing unwholesome activity, so you can prevent doing it, engage in it. When you are going to do some unwholesome activity, you think of your parents, you think of the other persons in the society, and you think of the dignity of your traditions and your religion, and also your social status, social conditions. In that way, you feel shame to do that unwholesome activity. You prevent it. You gave up doing it. That is shame. And another one is fear. Fear to do unwholesome activities. You sometimes you have heard about the stories in Petavatu. You have studied, if you have studied some stories in Petavatu, you are afraid of to be born in those hell. Because of that, you feel fear to engage in unwholesome activities. There is a story in Petavatu. Venerable Narada, he makes a parent. His except his head and face, the other parts of his body, they were bright, beautiful, bright. But his head was like a head of a pig. Can you understand it? Then the Venerable Narada asked the reason for that. He said, I did some notorious deeds also, but I engaged in lying and slandering and harsh words and nonsense. Because of that, as a result of that, I have got this head as a pig. That is one story. For fear of those things, the people feel not to do unwholesome activities. That is fear. So that fear and hiri, that leads the person to develop his self-discipline as a man. He can develop his self-disciplines because of hiri and nota, shame and fear. It is called, in Devadhamma Jataka story, these hiri and nota are known as divine Dhamma. There is divinity because it creates the self-discipline in the person. Hiri. Then non-greed, alobha. Yes, non-greed, I explained it. That is the power of suppressing the greed. To do meritorious deeds, suppose in donation foods. To donate food, you have to suppress greed. So it suppresses emerging greed in consciousness. That is non-greed. Then non-hatred, adosa, non-hatred. It is the power of suppressing hatred. If you have hatred, you have to attempt, you must make effort to suppress it. That power is known as, it's a mental factor. It works in the wholesome consciousness. His task is to suppress hatred, non-hatred, hatred, suppress, adosa. Then tatra manyatata, neutrality of mind. Tatra manyatata, it's the power of taking object with equanimity. Now, the consciousness and mental factor get the same object at the same time. So there must be balance there. At the same time, that must be happen. So that power is called tatra manyatata. It keeps the balance of the functions of the consciousness and the mental factor. Tatra manyatata. If there is no balance in mental factor and consciousness, so the order is not there, it is out of order. The actions and all things are out of order. So this is very important, tatra manyatata, neutrality of mind. Then tranquility of mental factor, kaya passaddhi. That is, here the kaya means the mental factor. Here the mental body or mental factor. That is the tranquility in mental factors. So when mental factors work in the wholesome consciousness, there must be some tranquility in the mental factors. So it creates that kaya passaddhi, the mental factor. The task of mental factor is that calm and quiet of all mental factors. It keeps calm and quiet in all mental factors. Then tranquility of consciousness, chitta passaddhi, that is tranquility of mind. So mind and mental factor together, there must be tranquility. It suppresses emerging greed in consciousness and it keeps tranquility. Then kaya lahuta, again the lightness of mental factors. Lightness, it has ability to keep lightness in the mental factors. If there is some, say, if there is some hatred mental factors, heavy mental factors. So this Kaya Lahuta, it try to make lightness in the mental factors. That is Kaya Lahuta. And Chitta Lahuta is again the lightness of consciousness. It is the power which lightens the weight of the consciousness raised at the moment. It's a kind of power. It acts as a kind of power and lighten the weight of the consciousness. It lightens, reduce the weightness, lighten the movement. Then Kaya Mudita, malleability of, that is malleability of mental factors. Kaya Mudita, Chitta Mudita, that is malleability of consciousness, is reducing hardness. Reducing, it is the power of reducing hardness. Then Chitta Mudita, the power of it is the power of reducing hardness of the consciousness raised at the moment. Then Chitta Kammanyata. Chitta Kammanyata. Adaptability of consciousness. Kammanyata, that is when the person wants to engage in some work, so he had to get into that. Without getting into that, he can't do it. He has to change his attitudes according to the place, according to the work, according to the persons. You have to adapt or change. There must be changing. So according to the situation of the work, there must be adaptability in consciousness. So it happens, this Chitta Kammanyata. Now suppose if we take some bar of gold, the goldsmith can make several jewelries by adapting those gold. So there must be, in gold, there is some adaptability. Because of that adaptability, the goldsmith can create a lot of jewelries. In that way, there's adaptability. Then Chitta Kammanyata, Chitta Kammanyata, Chitta Kammanyata. Then again next one, Kayuddhugata, Chittuddhugata. Kayuddhugata, Chittuddhugata. That is Kayuddhugata, proficiency of consciousness. Chittuddhugata, rectitude of mental factor. Here the Kayuddhugata, rectitude of mental factor or mental body. Kayuddhugata, the power which generates the uprightness of mental factors to engage in wholesome consciousness. generate the uprightness of mental factor to engage in the wholesome consciousness. That is, it gives some strength to the mental factor to do that task. Without, now, if there is tina or midda, if the person can't do in any meritorious deeds, so here this power, it generates some uprightness to do that task. That is, when the person engage in wholesome activity, this mental factor, kaya, yugata, it gives some strength to do that wholesome activity. Then Chittu Yugata, that is rectitude of consciousness, Chittu Yugata, the power which can generate uprightness in the consciousness, race for the movement. You can understand it, the consciousness. Is strengthen the consciousness. If there is tina mid, uddatta kukkutta, so the people can't engage in meritorious deeds. So this mental factor, chittujjugata, it gives some strength or power to do it. Those are the 19 beautiful universe. Then we'll come to that, if I have time, we'll come to that role, that other mental factors also. Absentees, virati, absentees, virati, they are called right speech, right action, right livelihood. Samma vata, samma kammanta, samma ajiva. Those are called abstinences. They are 3 in number. Virati. In Pali, it is called virati. Samma vata, right speech. When the person engage in wholesome activity, sometimes when he observe 5 precepts or 8 precepts and 10 precepts, he have to develop those mental factors, right speech, right action, right livelihood. Virati means that prevent doing unwholesome activities. It prevent. When you engage in when you are going to engage in unwholesome activity, this virati, if there is virati mental factor arise in your consciousness, it prevents that doing that unwholesome activity. In Arthasalini, there is a story. There are 3 stories about saying about these functions of virati or the absences. Virati is of three kinds. Sampatna, Samadana, Samuchcheda. Sampat, Sampanna means it comes from traditional. Samadana means that some observing. And Samuchcheda is eradicating forever. I will explain it. Now, there is a story in Attasalini about the function of this virati. There was a young upasaka. His name was Takkana. He belonged to the traditional Buddhist family. Traditionally, they are Buddhist. Takkana had an elder brother also. Takkana's mother was ill. A physician came and a physician asked if there is hare meat, rabbit meat. I can make drugs for your mother and I can cure your mother. Then Takkana's elder brother told Takkana, you go to the paddy field and you can catch hare there and bring here to cure our mother. Now Takkana belongs to the traditional Buddhist family. He has not observed five precepts, but because of his Buddhist traditions, he has developed the Buddhist concepts there. Killing is not reasonable. Killing beings is not reasonable. Every being must live. So killing is not reasonable. But he has not observed five precepts or any precepts. But he, according to the traditions, he has developed this great concept in his mind, in his consciousness. And that is wholesome consciousness. Somanasa Sahagata, Dittigata, Somanasa Sahagata, Jnana Sampayutta, Asankarika. The first wholesome conscious is the most powerful consciousness. Now Takkana went to the paddy field and he waited there for rabbit. He saw a rabbit and he caught the rabbit, and then their virati came here into his mind, the mental factor. Because of that virati, he begins to think this rabbit is very innocent. Why I kill this innocent creature to cure my mother, to make living of my mother? Why I kill this animal? It is not reasonable. He felt like this. So he gave up because of there arise in his mind the mental factor virati, right livelihood, they are arised. So he rescued, released the rabbit and went home without rabbit. His brother got angry and asked. Then Chakkana said, I caught the rabbit, but I felt it is not reasonable to kill this rabbit because of my mother. So I released. When he released this rabbit, there arise the power, the most powerful consciousness in his mind, and their virati is there. The virati, the mental factors, wholesome mental factors that can be engaged in the supramundane consciousness. You know, there are 8 supramundane consciousness, lokottara. When person is going to achieve sovan, sakurdagami, anagami, Arihat, there arise those supramundane consciousness. Then, when Chakkana release this rabbit, there arise those virati in the mental factors in his mind, and there arise this all mental factors up to vipassana, up to concentrations. This kayuddhugata, chittuddhugata, every wholesome mental factors arise in his consciousness. That's why he released the rabbit. Then, what did Chakkana do there? He went with that powerful consciousness and he blessed his mother because of this releasing the rabbit or giving the life to the rabbit. My mother may cure. In that way, Chakkana blessed his mother. Then what happened? Miraculous things happened there. His mother was cured. And there's a story in that way. And there's another story also. I have no time to explain those things. And now the virati is there, right speech, right actions, right livelihood. In Eightfold Pathway, you have studied all those things. Then we'll come to the other 3. Illimitable compassion, karuna, and mudita, appreciative joy. What is karuna? Karuna means if you feel some sad in your mind, when one person is in danger, suppose one person has met with an accident, being severe damage, then when you look at him, you feel some karuna, that is called compassion. It's a mental factor. Paradukke hadayang kampatiti karuna. When others are in danger, by looking at them, you feel that compassion. Now, we know our people, they become victims because of flood, storms. What do? We give them food, clothes, and shelters. We help them. That is because of that mental factor, compassion. Then mudita, appreciability, joy. If you can be happy, if you are happy by looking at the others' way of the good way of living, other persons, they live in happy. You look at them, and if you can be happy towards them, that is mudita. Then the last beautiful mental factor is panya, wisdom faculty, non-delusion. Panyindriya, that is panya. So panya is the wisdom. And now in the T6, Sila Samadhi Panya. You know, that is Panya is wisdom. Panya means there, because of developing Panya, he achieved Nibbana. That is the Panya. He achieved in Nibbana, Prajna. That is to achieve those nobility. There is a mental factor called Panyindriya or Panya. It's a wisdom faculty. That is the task. Its task is developing wisdom in the person. When person engage in vipassana bhavana, this Panyindriya, the mental factor is there to achieve Nibbana or to develop such knowledge to realize Nibbana, to achieve Nibbana. That is Panyindriya, Panya, the beautiful mental factor. Now I have explained the 25 beautiful mental factors. And in my former lessons, I explained the other mental factors. So altogether, I explained 52 mental factors. I think you have understood. If you have understood the will, that is the thing that I can be happy with you. Let me stop my Abhidhamma class here today with this. Blessing of the triple gems be showered upon you. Thank you very much for listening to me. We'll meet again in our next Abhidhamma class. Blessing of the triple gems be showered upon you. May you understand Abhidhamma. Thank you very much.
Much merit to you, Reverend Sir, for completely discussing mental factors and the different categories. Dhamma listeners, if you do have any questions, we have a few minutes where we can clarify if you have something or any thoughts to share. You can unmute your microphone and ask the question in Zoom, or you can put the question in the chat box and I will read it on your behalf. If you do not have any questions, then we will end the session and we will meet again next week, same time, for our 10th Abhidhamma class. So this is our second cycle. We are being more descriptive in the lessons, Reverend Sir. So last cycle we had only 9 sessions. This time we probably will have a couple of more sessions. So much merit to you again, Dhamma listeners, and much merit to you and our gratitude, Most Venerable Bulwala Ratnasiri Thero. So we will meet again next Saturday. May you all be well and stay safe. I'm ending the meeting now, Reverend.
Yes, it's all right now.